This is going to be a bit of a weird video. This is a game that I discovered by just browsing through the eShop, looking at games that were discounted, and then spending a few gold coins to get this game almost for free. But yeah, this kind of took me by surprise when I played it. This is a game by Bryce Bucher, who's an independent developer who makes kind of weird games, not necessarily horror, just weird. It's Fatum Betula, which means Fate Birch. You can see the translation right there. And one thing I'll give the game credit for right off the bat is if you go into the options menu, there's an option for epilepsy-friendly visuals. So aside from the warning that it had at the beginning of the game, this makes it so that you don't get completely caught off guard by them. But yeah, anyway, let's hop directly into the game, and I'll get into a little bit of the strangeness of this title. So the game starts you off just in this pseudo-church style building. If you try going through the doors, you can't open them until you do what you're supposed to do here. So what you have to do is go up these stairs and into this room, and that is the Fatum Betula. The objective of this game is to water it / feed it with different things, and then that will affect how the game ends. So there's just this stone pathway, and there's not really much you can do, but in your inventory there's a letter, which leads to the first puzzle of the game. This basically explains what you have to do to basically get the game rolling and be able to leave this building. So there's a bit of a story behind this, but the long and the short of it is, you need to go to the end of the stone path, which we're currently on, and then stare into the darkness until something appears. And you don't have to do it for particularly long. I'd say maybe like 3 or 4 seconds. And then something will start to appear. Here it comes. Alright, now keep in mind you have to keep looking at this thing, because if you turn away for even a moment, bam, it's gone. And then you gotta stare in the darkness again. I mean, the note did tell you that you had to keep looking at it, so can't be too surprised that that happened. But once this thing fully manifests, you do have to start talking to it in order to progress through the game. And what you come to realize is that the world as represented by the Fatum Betula is sort of in a state of limbo. And ultimately, what we're going to do is feed different things to the Fatum Betula in order to shake it out of this limbo. And as for how we're going to do that, well, this being is going to give us the things that we need to be able to do that. Specifically, oh yeah, and just ignore that warning about feeding what we bleed. We'll get to that later. But he just tossed something to us, and I will show you what exactly he gave us in a moment. But the important thing right now is we are able to leave this building. And you look at the inventory now, the note is gone, and we have these 3 vials. Those are the things we're going to use to collect various things to feed to the Fatum Betula. Now we're outside of the quote-unquote church building, and this is the point where you can go in several different directions and end up getting several different endings. But for now, I'm going to head off to the right. And by the way, if you do fall in this pit, you'll just respawn right next to the bridge. It's not really possible to die in this game. So if you move to the right, you will end up in this very Japanese-inspired area. And there are some key ingredients to solving certain puzzles, not the least of which being this knife/short sword thing in the tree, which is also followed by a note. And this note is going to be a hint to several puzzles. Well, technically it's a hint for one thing, but it can be applied to several different things throughout the game. And one thing that I recommend doing a lot in this game is saving. They give you 4 different save slots, and I'm just going to wipe out one of these and then save in here. Because you can get to certain points where you've progressed to like a certain amount where you're basically limiting the amount of endings you can possibly get. So throughout this, I'm basically going to load back to that particular save point and then use that to go to each of the different endings, because there are quite a few to get to. Now, this area is for a fisherman. And if you head inside here, you'll notice a couple of things. There's a bed, and then there's this painting. This is made to look like an older work, but it's actually done by an artist named Somber Painter on DeviantArt. And that is an oil-on-paper painting that they made specifically for this game. Now, if you sleep in the bed, things get a little weird. You're going to see these kanji characters a lot. One of them means like either birch or dark red. Birch as in like the birch of a tree. And the other means death. So you can probably guess, what the significance of either of those is. Now, if you fall in the water, again, it'll just respawn you back on the ground. You can't swim or anything. A couple important things to point out. One of them is this guy over here. This is not the fisherman. This is simply an art enthusiast who was trying to see that fisherman painting. Once you go into this kind of alternate version of this place, the painting disappears. So the puzzle with him is that you have to find a way to bring the painting through the bed and then to him. But let's move on. Get used to me transitioning between things, because there's a lot of walking in between these. Also in this area off to the side is this gravestone, and this is the gravestone of the fisherman. And it has a very specific request to cut the shackle of rope, which is this noose directly to the side of it. So you can use that knife/sword/machete on the rope, and that will summon the fisherman, or the thing that the fisherman became. So the fisherman doesn't really care for life, just in general, but he is going to have us sort of follow his mantra by trying to get back at the Fatum Betula. As he just said, he wants to poison the future. And by future, he means he wants us to take a fruit and then feed it to a mammal that is still living, and then kill it, and then we can use something from that with the Fatum Betula. So he'll give us this fruit, and then we have to backtrack quite a bit, although in order to do that, we have to get out of this realm. Because so long as the world is like this, you cannot leave this area. So you'll sleep in the bed first, and then from there we will run back to that grassy area. Now you may wonder what kind of mammal we could feed this to. Well, there's just this cat thing hanging out near this pond, which is positioned almost right in front of that church-style building where we were before. And if you try talking to him, he says he's been here a while, he's got a pain in his stomach, he's probably hungry, so you can give him the fruit, and this happens. And he's dead. So, now that he's dead, what we can do is we can take one of these vials and use it on the animal's body, and that will give us poison. So, what do you think will happen if we feed that to the Fatum Betula? I should also note this is the point where we're going to start seeing a bunch of different endings for this game. So, if you don't want to be spoiled on those, you probably should stop watching now. Or, hell, maybe watch a couple of them and then decide if you want to get the game and see the others or not. Whatever, you be the judge. So you don't actually use it directly on the Fatum Betula. You have to use it on the water that it rests in. And when you do, then you start getting endings. Now, normally I would just stay silent for these endings, because some of them do have like unique audio in them. This I'm making the exception for, because as the subtitles say, there is nothing. When the fisherman said he wanted to like eradicate the future, he was not kidding. There is absolutely nothing here. Not exactly the most interesting ending, but nothing is a possibility. I mean, obviously, we're here to acknowledge the nothing, but, as they say, we'll eventually not remember this because death will make sure of that. So that is one of 10 possible endings in this game. This is ending 0, nothing to worry about. And every time you do trigger an ending, you're going to get these same credits. With, obviously, the people who worked on this, and a list of resources. I'm not used to seeing freesound.org in a game that I don't, despise. And also this list of people. Shoutouts to Little Norwegians. They're still working on Combustion right now, and I'm optimistic about how that's turning out. Also Haunted PS1, because I found some good stuff in that. So once the credits finish rolling, it'll kick back to the startup and then the title screen. And instead of just showing that every single time, I'm going to jump cut back to the spot where we saved and then go toward the next ending. We're going to stick around this area for a bit because there are a few different endings that you can get resultant from things that you do here. And instead of sleeping in the bed and going to the alternate reality version of this, there's a boat tied up here. So we're going to take our sharp object, cut the line, and that'll cause the boat to drift to the shoreline. So if we jump to that shoreline, you can actually reach the boat and then grab the fishing pole out of it. And there are a couple of different things you can do here. You can either just immediately start fishing from this bigger pond, or you can head back to this little side area with almost like a smaller koi pond style thing that you can walk up this bridge and then just easily fish out one of these fish. And then this is something that you can also feed to that cat beast thing. But unlike the fruit, feeding it this fish, as weird, or it actually looks like kind of gross. But if you feed it to this guy, it will not kill him. And he'll be quite thankful that you decided to, take care of his hunger. And in return, he will give you something else. And there are these little, winking nods to what his life was like before this. All he seems to recall is fire. And he's lugging around this huge thing of what you'll eventually discover, once we get this inside the vial. This is oil. Now, you can immediately go and feed this to the Fatum Betula as well, and that will cause this ending to trigger. And warning, there's a dead frog in this one. And there you have the parasites ending. Now, let's load back in, and this time let's just leave this area, because technically we already have what we're going to need for this next ending, which is just our sharp object. We're going to go back to the beast, and rather than try to feed it anything, we're just going to stab it. And then after we stab it, we can use a vial on its body. But unlike the poison from before, this time we're just getting straight up beast blood. So then we take that, we feed it to the tree, and then this happens. I mean, that could have happened, but instead let's load back in. Now I just want to show you something else, which is that there's more than one way to accomplish the same thing for certain parts of this game. So you can cut the line, get the fishing pole, and you can find this particular fish. You can tell that the color scheme for it is a little different from the one that we saw earlier. And if you feed that fish to the beast, that will also cause it to cough a bit and then keel over. And that's another way that you can accomplish the same thing. For this next ending, we're going to basically go through the steps to get something that we can use to poison the cat mammal thing again. So you could use the fruit, you could use that one fish I showed earlier. Point is, you just need to poison the cat again. And then you collect the poison from the cat's body, and then we're going to go to an area that hasn't been explored yet. There are still a couple places we haven't been. So from here, you go up this little ridge and walk into these shrubs, which just look perfectly normal, but once you walk inside of them, you get teleported to a new space. There's this gazebo, which is what you use to get back to where we were before, but otherwise you're on an island, you're surrounded by water, and there's this one little submariner over here who goes on at a decent length about how beautiful the sea is, how they're enamored with the way that it constantly moves and shifts and how great the color is, and then makes the note, please don't put anything in her. Remember that for later. For now, though, we're going to go to the pier, and specifically to the submarine at the end of the pier. And as you might expect, the submarine takes you underwater. It looks like the submarine's buried itself, but you can use that to get back to the previous area. And there are a couple things of note here. You can see this ruined church. The symbol at the top of it is the same as the one that we saw for the opening area and the door leading to it. And there's also this big green wall over here. This is actually a massive wall of seaweed that's too thick for you to get through. And then over here, there's this curious sight of this diver who their neck is elongated and their head sitting on the ground, their limbs stretch all the way up to the surface of the water, and they just very casually chat with you. This is all just perfectly normal. They do mention, however, that it is possible to get further below, but the way there is blocked by that wall of seaweed. They mention that they need a way to kill it. Well, what we can do is head back up to the surface and dump our poison into the water. The submariner is not exactly thrilled about this. However, by doing that, we can go back underneath the water surface and know the poison doesn't kill us or hurt us or anything like that. The diver does mention that the pink hurts, referencing the poison that has now permeated the water, but also mentions that the poison has killed the seaweed. And this is actually one of a couple ways to do it. You can dump oil in the water and it'll have the same effect. So it's really just a matter of what color you want the water to be. Anyway, you can go through the seaweed, and there is a massive trench on the other side of it. And there's only one thing you can do in this case, which is just walk off the edge and let yourself slowly sink down into the abyss. You do eventually hit the bottom, and you spawn here. Now, all of these houses look the same. All of them have the same street address, which is 666, because spooky evil number. You could spin this into some kind of representation of gentrification and gated neighborhoods and cookie cutter housing that gets built in several areas. But once you head inside one of these homes, it's your home. And one of the first things you'll see is your mother, who I've tried figuring out what the scrolling thing on her face is, but I still can't tell what it is. And she does mention a couple things. For one, she implies we're a massive shut-in who watches way too much TV. And we also have a plant we're supposed to be watering in our room that we haven't been taking care of. Because Fatum Betula. Washing the dish for the next week or so. I really like that line, I'm not sure why. You can change the radio station on this, but more important, we're going to linger in front of the TV. there are many, many ways you could interpret any individual part of that or all of that. The imagery that was used, the fact that it's all being played on a TV, and the messages you would get from the things you would watch on TV. But instead, let's just go through this weird hallway. And we'll head to the end of that. That's technically supposed to be our room. It ends up with us facing this hallway again, so we'll head back down it. The mom will be gone, but there's someone else sitting in front of the TV. And guess what? That's us. So, remember way back at the beginning of the game, when I mentioned the line about how, yeah, this is just going to do the same thing again. The thing with the teeth mentioned, don't feed it what you bleed. We're going to go against that. So you can use the blade to essentially kill yourself and then take a sample of your own blood. And now from here, conveniently, there's this door that will lead you right back to the church-style building at the beginning of the game. And you can just dump your blood in here and watch the magic happen. And thus the cycle repeats. Speaking of the cycle repeating, let's go for another ending. So, loading back in, we're going to avoid the fisherman thing entirely and just take the sword and go straight to the cat mammal thing, use the sword to kill it, and then take its blood. And I'll be honest, that had nothing to do with this ending. I just needed to explain why I suddenly had a vial of blood. So we're going to go to a completely different area that we have not visited yet, where it's very autumn in this area, and there's a well nearby that has a jar sitting at the edge of it. We're going to take that jar off of the well, and we're going to run all the way back to the fisherman place. Now remember the dude who was hanging out in the sleep zone, for lack of a better term for it? He was looking for this painting, but we need a way to get it to him. So we're going to take the jar and just throw it at the painting. And now the painting is in the jar. We can pick up the jar again, go to sleep, wake up in the nether, whatever you feel like calling this, and we can deliver the jar with the painting in it to this art fan. And you'll actually hear him gasp in a moment. And then you can talk to him again, and he will go on at length about the painting, and how he's been looking for it, how it's not quite as good as he remembered, because nostalgia's a bitch. However, he is still thankful for us delivering this painting for him. And as such, kind of like the cat memo, he will give us something that we can sample with our vials. It's not immediately apparent what it is, but once you dip your vial in it, you'll find that this is liquid bone. But rather than just immediately take the liquid bone to the Fatum Betula, we're going to get back to the normal realm, head back toward that pond where the cat is, and we're going to create a save point there because this is another point where you can get to several different endings. So, with that save being made, we'll just take the liquid bone straight to the Fatum Betula, dump it into the water, and... And welcome to one of the gag endings. Although, there were still a few serious lines thrown in there, but really it's a gag ending. So, let's load back to the pond. Because the pond can actually be used to dump and mix certain things together. And if you mix the beast blood with the liquid bone, that somehow becomes plant growth. And you might be thinking, okay, well, now we'll just dump the plant growth on the Fatum Betula. No. Not yet. While we have the plant growth, we're going to go back to the underwater section and head into that ruined church, because on the ground there is a key. Now we're going to take that key, head back to the water surface, go back through to the pond, and then into the autumn zone, which is just what I'm going to call it from now on, because there's a little out-of-place plant in this area. And if you take the plant growth and you dump it on that plant, it grows and forms a bridge of sorts leading to this upper area that you can't otherwise reach. Now you're going to follow this path around the water and drop down the other side. And then you're going to follow the path leading back through here and you'll get to this building. That key that we got from the ruined church, you need it to get inside here. Once you are inside, there will be nothing but these barrels all stacked up in the corner. These barrels are wine casks, and you can use one of your vials on those casks to get some wine. And this is what we're feeding to the Fatum Betula. By the way, if you're watching this and thinking, how the hell am I supposed to figure out what the formula is for plant growth? There's a note in the autumn zone that tells you exactly what to do. I just didn't do it this time because I already knew what the formula was, so sorry for getting that a little backwards. Anyway, it's time for the Fatum Betula to get absolutely shit-faced on this wine. Yeah, Death is that guy for this party. Anyway, let's load back in to the pond area. And we didn't use the plant growth on the Fatum Betula before, but we are going to do that now. And the results can be kind of predictable. See, this is what happens when you tip the scales too far in the other direction. So, next ending, we'll load back to where we got the knife/sword thing. We'll cut the line for the boat, grab the fishing pole, and we'll fish out that one particular fish that caused the cat to die when the cat ate it. But we're not going to feed it to the cat. Oh, and this is a little annoying thing. You kind of have to position yourself and the line just right. Otherwise, the fish just won't go for it at all. Anyway, we'll take this fish and head back to the autumn area. And, you might notice this home? Keep that home in mind. We'll be coming back to it later. So, we will head over to this well and not grab the jar. We're just going to fall straight in. And there's a dude and a whole lot of books at the bottom of it. And this guy holds the key to the ending we're going to try and find. See, he's been down here for a while. He's done a lot of reading. He's actually quite smart. In fact, like all that you're seeing, he just said it's his life's work. But he has one small problem. He can't get out of here because he cannot open wooden doors. And the only way out of here is a wooden door that's behind where we're standing right now. He mentioned the skull of an immortal, which he needs. And he knows where one is, and it's at the house that we just saw earlier. But we have to figure out a way to get it back to him. Also, we have to figure out a way to kill an immortal. And this is where the hint would be for the jar that you throw at the painting. So like, I'm kind of breezing through things really fast because I already know what to do, but the hints for most of this stuff is in the game. It's only when you get to like the really bizarre endings, and you'll understand what I mean by bizarre in a moment, that it doesn't drop hints like that. So, heading out there just takes you straight to the church. You go back, head through the autumn zone, head back into this house, and there's just a staircase. And at the bottom of the staircase, you see a dude with extremely long limbs. And if you try talking to him, even though he looks like a corpse, he's not actually dead. I'm assuming that if you get the wrong chalice in that one Indiana Jones movie, this is like the final product of what you end up as. So he's been sitting down here just rotting. He's too weak to get any food, and he's starving. And oh, by the way, we have a fish, don't we? He actually wants us to kill him, just so that he doesn't have to suffer eternally anymore. And, I mean, I'm not one to, like, turn down a request like that. So, we can just take the bad fish, give it to him, and just wait a little bit. There it goes. Alright, so now we have the skull that dude was looking for, so we can back out of here, head back down the well, and then give the skull of the now slain immortal to this guy. And, let's just say he's pretty happy about this. Like, this is the breakthrough he's been looking for. Yeah, he's that happy. Dropping F-bombs in the middle of this game. Now, here's the thing. He still can't get out of here because of that curse on the wood door. And he just says hopefully he can climb out of here. But I have a feeling that he might end up like exactly like the dude that we killed to get the skull to create the immortality potion. I mean, that's his prerogative, I suppose. Anyway, he gives us this big old pot of like a mystery solution, which is the key to immortality. So, let's take that, dump it into the water, and see what happens. And this is another one of those, the price of immortality type of endings. So, next ending. You cut the line for the boat. Grab the fishing pole. Don't hit the inventory thing before you grab the fishing pole, like I did. And just get a regular fish out of the pond. This pond or the smaller one. Doesn't matter. Go to the cat. Feed it the fish. Take the oil that it gives you. Then head to the ocean. Dump the oil into the ocean. Submariner literally hates us. Go into the ocean. Go through the now dead seaweed. Fall into the trench. And now, we're going to be back here. But instead of going into one of the houses, we're just going to keep, like, jogging at a moderate pace down this street. And you do this for, like, close to a minute. It's like 50-something seconds. You have to just move in a straight line down the street. So I'm going to speed this footage up a little bit. But eventually, after just continuing to jog down the street, you will eventually find this. And maybe it's just me, but like the smooth reflective surfaces of this thing kind of give me like a Flight of the Navigator vibe. And yes, I am severely dating myself with a Flight of the Navigator reference. Anyway, let's hop inside. And once we're inside, you can see someone on the other side of that glass sitting at a computer. Well, standing technically. Now here's the thing. You need to go into that room to get the ending that we're going for. And the only way to go into that room is through that door that I'm ignoring for now. But the moment you do, he dies. So you can't really talk to him. You can, however, go through his computer and it explains why he just died as soon as we open the door. He mentions that the people in the homes treat him like a virus, which is kind of weird considering what ultimately happens to him. See, he went into one of the houses, and since all the houses are the same, the woman he's talking about is just our mother. I don't remember our mother having a mouth, but somehow she bit him. He's infected with something, a virus, and he needs to quarantine himself inside of this ship. Because, like as we just saw, it reacts violently with the outside air and it ultimately kills him. So he's just been stuck inside this ship for several days, and it causes him to start seeing things, first in his dream, and then like in real life. I'll be honest, this goes on for a very long time. He talks about things being constructed with straight edges, and polygons come up later, and you could argue that this is possibly that character becoming self-aware of him being in like a low-res PS1 style video game. And there's actually evidence of that somewhere else in this room. But we'll get to that later. I don't know why I just hiccuped in the middle of that. It's okay, there are only a few more entries left in this, and we'll get back to the actual game. See, he's talking about scripts, and being a plane, reused assets, no past. No past because he was just constructed for this game. And then he mentions tomato soup. And that is precisely what we came here for. Optiplane's tomato soup. And yes, that is the eye symbol that we've become quite familiar with. Now here's the thing. The immediate eye-catching thing in this room is just all the cans of tomato soup, including the one giant one in the corner. But if you go to the desk and look at the bulletin board, see the eye in the middle, and then the upper left corner, the Unity logo. So that's just more evidence that this dude is becoming self-aware of him being just part of a video game. But anyway, we have the tomato soup. We're going to go all the way back to the church. And then... what do you know? He was right. And let's go into the next ending, loading back to this pond. And we're going to dump in the beast blood, and then dump in the liquid bone to form the plant growth, and then take some of that. And then we're going to head back to the fishing area, cut this line, send the boat to the shore, grab the fishing pole, get the fish that is poisonous. Sometimes takes a little bit to realize that the line is in the water. But okay, now we've got it. And then we're going to head to this guy, feed him the fish, take his skull, head into the well, give him the skull, get the immortality, and we'll head to the ocean floor because there's something here. This doesn't always appear. Fortunately, it did this time. And for those of you who have no idea what this is the quote-unquote biblically accurate depiction of an angel according to Ezekiel. I don't know if all of them tell you that you're going to hell in real life, but that one does. So, back here, using the plant growth to create the bridge, head all the way back to this building, but instead of going into it, we're going behind it. And this sometimes doesn't appear either, but it's a miniature depiction of the moon. And if you click on it, it'll take you to this place, presumably inside the moon. Although, there's another moon inside of the moon, so I guess it's a little open to interpretation. All I know is that the moon is not the 51st state. Anyway, there's not a whole lot in this area. Like, if you go to the sides, there's really not much beside more walls, so you just go to the staircase. The staircase is blocked until you interact with the moon in the center of the room, and that causes this to open almost like a planetarium. I don't know why I completely blanked on that word, but you see eye symbols off to the side of the doors, and you just gotta keep moving up these stairs because this can take a little bit. But eventually, you do start to see something. And here we are. So say hello to God. Or at least something purporting itself to be God. So the curious thing about this particular being is that it keeps talking about the past is an illusion, that this isn't some kind of warped memory. But at the same time, this being cannot remember where it came from. It just knows itself to have always been. And also, we are apparently the only character that has any sort of free will. And apparently that's because of this being in front of us. So, they mentioned free will earlier, and the thing is, we literally do become like the only person in this game that has free will, as in, we go to this waterfall and collect it in one of the vials. And now we can spread free will to everyone else by going through this convenient door and dumping it into the Fatum Betula. And this ending you're about to see is one of the endings where the epilepsy triggering stuff could happen, but it's turned off, so it should be okay to watch. Where do we go from here? Doesn't matter. We're living in the present. Now, this is something that I neglected to point out before, so I'm kind of tacking this on here. But if you go to a certain part of this map, you'll see something strange starting to kind of glitch into existence as you get close to this part of the map. From most angles, you can't really see it. But when you get closer to it and start moving around more, yeah, there it goes. Yeah, this is something the developer just threw in. And I can actually explain a bit more about this a bit later in the video. Because we've gone through endings 0 through 9. However, there was a hidden ending. Now, if you were on the PC version, this would require, like, digging through some files and stuff. But in the Switch version, there's another way you can do it, since that's not as easy to do. You can kind of climb up this wall and then descend down beyond the boundaries of the map, and it'll warp you here. This looks kind of strange at first, but as you proceed forward toward that rotating cube in the middle, you'll notice that all of the walls are, yeah, these are all screenshots of the dev kit that he used to build this game. And that rotating cube in the middle, well, that's the developer. And he has a bit of a nice friendly conversation with us. I think that's rather nice of him, considering the efforts we went through to, find him here in the first place. And actually, that line is rather prescient, because I didn't know about this game until I was just browsing games that were on sale on the Switch eShop. So anyway, there is another purpose to doing all of this, besides just being able to see Developer Cube over here. Oh right, I forgot, he mentioned the RNG-based secret behind the church. We already saw that. So we're just going to go straight for the secret ending. Although, he does mention his friend escorting us out, and we see someone appear back by the, well, I might as well point this out. Most of the text is a little too blurry to make out, but you can see, like, the names of all the different layers and various assets. But this guy is the mascot for the PS1 Haunted demo disc. Blunt as ever. So that causes the door to the church to appear. But we're not leaving here empty-handed. So you can kind of walk through the cube, and you know what else you can do with the cube? You can acquire a liquid from it. A liquid that's just called Secret. And if you look carefully, you can see parts of, like, either the developer's face or someone else's face in there. Also, I'm sorry to do this, but I need to screenshot something really quick. There we go. This is a very screenshotable game. The kind of thing that you can really spring on someone out of context and get a decent reaction. Anyway, here's the secrets. I'm going to stop talking and just let this play to the end. Thanks for watching.
Hey, I'm the developer of the game. I've never done anything like this before, but I thought it'd be cool to just hide this in the game here. I'm just going to be poking around the files. So I haven't finished the game yet as of recording this. As you can see, I only have a few of the ending videos down here, but yeah, I don't know. I just thought I'd do some behind the scenes. So this is the title screen here. Not much to look at. So let's go over to the plant room. Poke around here. Yeah, so this was before I found out that Modus actually made some shaders for the caustics on the walls, so they're actually a separate model here. Let's see. Yeah, look at that. Of course, we have our friend back here. There he is. As you can see, I didn't know what to call him, so I just called him Guy. Plant room Guy. And actually, let's see if I can find this. Let's see if it's still in here. Yeah, okay. So I cut this out of the room because I thought it didn't really match the scenery very well, but there's a fountain. I put a fountain in the game. We can take a little look at it in game, of course. Look at that. It does look pretty nice. Maybe I'll use it in something someday. I don't know. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to the hub world. Yeah, so I remember not really knowing what to do with this door here, so I just kind of left it floating in the air. I didn't want to make an outside of the plant room or anything, and I think it worked out. I think it adds to it. Here we have our friend over here. Everyone thinks this is a cat, but actually it was supposed to be a raccoon. That's why he's named Raccoon in the over here. But it does not look like a raccoon very much. I originally tried to texture his head with like realistic raccoon fur and everything, and it did not work out at all. Not even a little bit. And early in playtesting, actually, I found out that you could just walk up the walls and just fall down into the pit down here. And I thought, you know what? I'll just hide something down there. I'm not even gonna get rid of that. Yep. And I placed this area up here behind the two bushes because I just really wanted to have a nice little secret in this first starting area. It's kind of inspired by the there's a caves in Lego Island. There's like a door that's inaccessible. That's just really mysterious, and I love little alcoves and little holes and stuff like that. So that's why that's there. All right. This is one of the later ones I made. The well actually used to be placed over here, and you could only access it by getting up on the plant, getting up here, and then jumping down into it. But I thought, I kind of want it to be accessible really early on so that you wouldn't have to jump through a bunch of hoops just to get there. So here it is. It's right here. I experimented with having more light shafts, but I felt it was a bit too much, so just kept it like that. Oh, the gravestone here, the text there, it's actually, it says a few things. It says lorem ipsum, and then it says, I believe L is real 2401 as a reference to some rumors surrounding a certain Nintendo 64 game. And I forgot what the last bit says, but yeah. So I just put some filler text there. This kanji here actually translates to birch. And in the Nightmare Zone, it's different. You see, that means, I believe, to have a nightmare. And this area, the graphical, I guess, intensity of it or whatever, kind of came about by accident. I didn't intend to even have this area in the game at first. I didn't plan for it. But I accidentally dragged the render texture material onto the walls inside of Cherry Blossom, and I just thought it looked neat. So I decided to make a whole area based around that. Over here, oh shoot. Here, let's. Over here, I thought it'd be cool to hide a character based on the vertex snapping of it being like so intense that the further you get away from it, it just basically becomes invisible. But the closer you get, there he is. He's really unstable. This character doesn't really have a lot to do in the game, but you know, I just thought it'd be cool to hide him there. Add a bit of flavor, if you will. This is a really cool place to develop the only high poly asset in here, in the whole game right here. The soup cans. I really don't know why I chose soup cans, but yeah, there they are. Of course, this is a picture of me that I just used for the scientist. Yep. And on this board here, we actually have some stock photos that were on the title screen, actually, like over here and here. This right here is the painting that is hung up in the Cherry Blossom area. That's the Unity logo, of course. This is the letter that you receive, or that you just have in your inventory at the start of the game. This is, of course, the eyeball symbol that relates to the plant room and the churches and all that. This right here is a picture of the body stuck in the wall that's in the suburbia area, which you might as well check out. Or, not the suburbia, the house area. Yeah, here we are. So, originally, I was going to have the mom's face scroll between a few different arrangements like this, kind of inspired by the Land of the Living and Grim Fandango. But, I don't know, I just accidentally had it scrolling in two directions. And that just scrolls through her whole texture there. Like, you can see the hair texture and the faces show up. And I don't know, that looked a bit more chaotic. And I decided to keep it. Hopefully people will see that and think it's unintentional. But yeah, there's the image that was on the cork board, the conspiracy board, if you will. All right, now let's check out Suburbia. So this area is a bit interesting because I wanted to give off the vibe that it goes on forever, but it's actually very small, and it just teleports you as you're walking through it. So right here is the player's position, as you can see. And here, let's set this up so that we can see all of it. Turn off the fog. Okay. Yeah, So right there is the player's position. Right there is the player's position. And as we walk, we hit a trigger that teleports us back. And this works in either direction. Yep. And as you keep going, eventually it'll detect that you've walked enough to let you go on into the lab. Might as well take a little peep. We got a gazebo, the ocean, which maybe doesn't go out as far as you might think. Yep. The sand texture down there is a little messy. You know, you can see the seams of it, but you know, you can get away with that sort of thing. Got the submarine here. Alright. Ocean floor. Let's look at this one. Let's turn off the fog again. Turn up the cutout distance. Why not? Look at that. That's the whole area. You got the walls stretch out about that much. There you go. Hope somebody's interested in that. Well, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this stupid little behind the scenes, me messing around little video that I hid in the game. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you got something out of it, maybe you didn't. I don't know. I just thought it'd be a fun little thing to do, I guess. Anyway, yeah, I hope you have a good day. Hope you enjoyed the game. If you didn't, that's alright. Yeah, I don't know. So, bye.